So now that the Raspberry Pi is wired into the engine, we can actually start running it again. We decided to test run the new air start system on the engine, and it's new. We just adjusted the brackets on it, and we have a new solenoid, and we're going to see if that system would actually spin the compressor wheel fast enough for the engine to get started without us having to actually manually hold an air chuck to the compressor wheel to start the engine. So this is what that looked like. Now you can see that that didn't spin the compressor wheel fast enough to actually start the engine. It spun it faster than our previous design, but still wasn't able to spin it fast enough. I think where we're running into an issue is the air chuck that we use to manually spin the engine uses outlets at a 1/4 inch diameter. Well, what we're using right now, outlets at a 3/8 inch diameter. So the air's coming out a little slower than the 1/4 inch. So I think we're gonna replace the 3/8 with a 1/4 inch, and we're gonna adjust the angles a little bit on the bracket so that it's hitting the fin at a little better angle to try and spin it fast enough to get it started. But either way, we still want to start and run the engine just because we haven't run it in a while, and it's honestly really fun to do. We had some difficulty at first because our combustion chamber is inefficient. It wasn't holding the flame well, and we actually had flame come out of the end of the nozzle on the exhaust side of the engine. So clearly we can see that we're really not holding a flame well in the flame tube, but regardless, we did get the engine to start, and this is what that looked like. So you can see after it gets started, I'm able to take the air away from the compressor wheel because it is pulling in air in on its own at that point and is running itself. You'll see that I reach in there and I adjust a valve. What that is the oil pressure at the start phase is only at 10 psi, and this is so we can get the compressor wheel spinning fast and easily. And then once it gets running, I crank down a valve a little bit, the return valve a little bit, so that we get actually 30 psi going into the turbo, so the bearings don't actually get destroyed while we're running it. So a couple minutes into the engine running, it actually just cuts off, and what happened is like I said, our flame tube really isn't that great, so the flame actually just wasn't able to hold in the flame tube, and so it just cut off, and you see that there's a big cloud of smoke of just unburnt fuel coming out of it, and I cut it off real quick. Nothing got hurt, it's just that the flame stabilization in the flame tube is not the best, so it does have issues holding it in there sometimes. So that was the first time we ran the engine in a couple months. Like I said, the Raspberry Pi is now hooked up to it. What we're going to work on now is actually getting an air start that will start the engine just by clicking a button on the Raspberry Pi and not having to actually hold an air chuck onto the engine. Once that's done, we can hook some sensors up to the Pi to get some readings on our combustion chamber so that we can try and make it better.